are you keeping?
I'm good, man. No worries. How about yourself?
I'm not too bad at all. I'm not too bad at all. Where are you in at the moment? In Virginia?
No, I'm in the Virgin Islands. That's where I live at. I
Oh
live in the Virgin
yeah.
Islands. Yeah.
We met on a call previously, didn't we?
I think so.
You said the Virgin Islands is like a state, but you don't have the rights of a state. You don't have voting rights. Is that how it works?
Yeah, I mean, to be completely honest with you, we're a colony. That's more what it feels like, right? We're in a colony, so it's different. I wasn't born here. I moved here a couple of years ago, but I've been here now, I think, for 7 years. So I've become accustomed to how it goes. We really ain't got no say so. Light on resources, it's tough. Like it's a colony. You know, they use it for vacation. That's what they call
Like
us.
Hawaii, Puerto Rico.
Yeah, I mean, I would say even more so than that. Like it's even worse than they got it, right? Because we're smaller. We're 3 different islands, but we're little and we're broken up. Puerto Rico's north of us, so most resources flow through Puerto Rico to us.
And what's the history of the Virgin Islands before the United States colonized?
Denmark. Actually,
Really?
St. Croix itself has been under 7 flags. But right before America, it was Denmark. The French had it, the Spanish had it. I mean, it's like I said, but only the St. Croix. The other islands, I think St. Thomas was 5 flags, and St. John was 5 flags. And so yeah, it's a little bit different between the islands.
And what's the ethnicity of people there? Are they like Puerto Ricans, or are they more white, or like? I suppose it's a mix now with all the different colonizers down through the years.
Yeah, so it's crazy, right? You would think that would make a difference. It's still like predominantly African, right? So I say about like 85 to 88% African. We do have Puerto Ricans. We have some Arabs. We have some Indians. They have people from what they call Down Island, but it's really like the Lesser Antilles that live here. And but there's a lot more white people moving here now. Like, so what's happening right here? We're getting gentrified. I just put it out there. It's being gentrified. People realize how beautiful the land is, what it has to offer, and they coming and buying it up. You know, like I used to get on airplanes because we leave from Miami to get here. Everybody uses American. And you get on the plane, it was like a family reunion. Now I get on a plane and I don't know these people. And these people ain't visiting. You know, they got like an overnight bag. They didn't, you know, they're coming back from a trip they did stateside. They live here. But I mean, that's what the Virgin Islands is about. It's unique in that if you're born in the Virgin Islands, it doesn't matter what color you are. If you black, you white, you purple, you green, you a Virgin Islander, you a Virgin Islander. It's only people that aren't like locally born that they even care about that distinction.
Yeah, and it's interesting, the gentrification, because happening in Ireland as well, where you have traditional working class areas now becoming sought after, and the people that are there for generations now cannot afford to rent or buy homes in their land.
So facts. I mean, and that's the plan. That's what they do. They have these places they live in, and then when it gets too expensive, they move somewhere else. Let us move in, drop the value of it, or whatever. Like they believe, drop the value on it, because it's really the reason the value is dropped is because they over police those areas. So if you over police the areas, you're gonna have a rise in crime. You have a rise in crime, you drop the value, then they come back in and buy it at a steal. It's it's a wicked plan, and they do it all over the world. Like so I got the chance to meet Mike. You know, Mike's my bro now, and I just realized the same thing happening. Yeah. Same thing happening to y'all is what they do to us. You know, so it's not a color thing; it's an oppressor versus the oppressed thing, and we just got to fight, man. We got to fight it.
See what happens there is the wealthy people accumulate so much wealth that they have to buy up assets, you know, and they invest their money in hedge funds and different financial management firms, and then they need a return on their investment. So they start buying up property, start buying land, and it's just about investment, but it's the regular working people then, and middle class people, working class people, they're the victims of this accumulation of wealth for such a small amount of people, you know?
Yeah, it's crazy. Like down here, when they started this strategy, they were buying homes and they would just let the homes go decrepit. Like they let them just get beat up and fall down. And, and they're still doing that. They will buy up these large swaths of land because we have a lot of undeveloped land. Then there's some land here that's protected. They can't do anything with it. Like so St. Croix in particular, you had a lot of Rockefeller money down here, a lot of Kennedy money down here. And when they gave it back, they were like, look, you can't mess with this land. So we got undeveloped land, but every bit of land that can be developed, they're buying that up. and local people can't. So here in the Virgin Islands, a living wage is 50,000 USD, right? But the average person don't even make $30,000. So that's the struggle, right? And we're just trying to figure out a way to keep our heads above water and at least hold on to the culture, because you can't fight the money. The money's going to do what the money does. But at least if you hold on to the culture and it's here for people to learn about, we won't be forgotten. And I think that's the goal right now, just not to be forgotten that we were here.
Will you briefly describe the culture and how it differs from mainland United States?
Oh, it's a totally different thing. So when I first moved down here, people told me this is going to be the closest thing to Africa you're going to see in the Western Hemisphere. And it's true. Like stateside, people here don't care if you like what they like. They're not going to acquiesce to what you bring down here. You're going to come down here, you're going to eat saltfish, you're going to eat dumplings, you're going to eat chop chop, you're going to eat pate. You're not going to eat that stuff you eat, and they don't care. They're not here to cater to you. And I think it's beautiful, but they know their history. They know their people. They know how long they've been here. They have an immense pride, as opposed to, say, like me being an African coming from North America. I don't know none of my history. I can tell you like my great-great-grandpeoples, but beyond that, we're mixed up in the sauce. They didn't get that here. Slavery was different because America didn't impose slavery here. It's a different form of slavery. So like even when the French had control of the island, when they were colonizing it, when they left their land to the children they created here. Right? So you got these generations of local Virgin Islanders that have always owned land, always owned businesses. They can't comprehend what I'm talking about. It's not that slavery wasn't just as bad. They were enslaved and same tactics were used, but a lot more of them were emancipated because of the mixed blood thing, whereas we didn't have that. Something that we don't have in the Virgin Islands, just a warning to all of y'all, we don't have customer service. So don't come down here thinking when you go to the grocery store, they're going to be like, oh, no, falling over themselves to help you. That's not going to happen. If they on the phone, they're going to finish their phone call. If they send in a text, they can finish their text. But it's because it's that working class middle, but you got to respect that. You don't know if they're talking about their child, their mom, a health issue. It's like, yeah, you need your groceries, but maybe what they're dealing with is deep. So there's a deep appreciation for that. And it seems like people are separated, but there's a deep bond of unity when you triumph, right? They're kind of cold, or so it seems, but they've been sold so many bills to sales over the years. People coming in here, oh, we're going to make it better. We're going to make it better. Take $100 million, run, you never see them again. And there's no recourse. So there's a lot of bitterness, a lot of hurt, but, they live off the land. They take care of themselves. I got nothing but respect for them. Both of my boys were born here, so they local Cruisians, and we represent that all day in the paint.
That's good. That's good. It's interesting the history with the slavery, where the generations after the initial slaves were free people that owned the land. That's unique because African slaves were, it was a hereditary. If you were born of a slave, you were a slave. That's what differentiates the African slaves from the Irish indentured servants in the Caribbean, where the Irish, the difference there being that the Irish, even though they had similar conditions, the Irish were there for a period of time, 5-7 years sentence. It was like, and then you were free and you had certain rights as a human, whereas the African slaves had rights like cattle, and
Right.
they were never free people.
I mean, like you just referred to, a lot of people don't know that distinction. But that's what makes slavery in the Western Hemisphere unique. It was chattel slavery, right? Other places, it was more of an indentured servitude because people always like, well, Africans enslaved Africans. It was a different form of slavery. But they really treated a human being like a beast. And that was it. You had no say-so, no word. But the people still had a resilience about them, right? Because we're here, right? We're still here. We're still living. We got a life. And we have a culture and what we believe in, but there's still some economic issues that we just haven't gotten over. And that hump is hard to be. You're just generationally kind of condemned to this place in this way. Like a lot of people here, like say on St. Croix. St. Croix might be 30, 40 square miles, literally. And you can drive from one side to the other side in your car 5, 10, 15 minutes. But there are literally people here that have never seen the other city. There's two cities, Christiansted and Frederickstead. There are people that have never been to Christiansted and never been, to Frederickstead, vice versa. And you're right here on this little island. But that is one of the things that comes down from the oppression of slavery. You stay in your place. You don't go somewhere else. And it's just, even the class system they built for themselves. If you got a college degree, you're here. If you got a high school diploma, you're here. If you don't have any degree, you're here. And if you're out there in the streets, you're just out there. So they still split themselves up the same way the enslaver did. It's kind of crazy, but you see it here easier because it's such a small demographic. We don't even have 100,000 people, so it's just blatant in your face. Whereas stateside, you got hundreds of millions of people. You know, you don't notice it, but here it's blatant. It's blatant.
And I think, if you look at the 21st century, modern day, a lot of those kind of prejudices are still there, but they're more subtle. But if you look at the continent of Africa and some of the leaders that have come up that showed real promise, they're quickly opened. And if you look at like Lumumba in the Congo, who was a real hope, and the CIA, I know we can get into conspiracy, but this is all on record. This is not conspiracy. I heard somebody describe themselves recently. I'm a conspiracy terrorist. My pronouns are told you so. But I don't know if you follow African politics at the moment. I keep my eye on, but there's a guy in Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traore. He's a boss, and he's bringing in free education, free housing. He don't want no Western support, but you'd fear for him, and that's the problem. Any bit of promise, it's like the corporate world. They don't like a free, independent African country.
I mean, right now, I'm actually reading a book on Simon Sankara. Right, I just finished a book on Robert Sobukwe. Of course, just read a book on Biko. I had to reread that again after my trip to South Africa, and it just, even what they did to Gaddafi. You know what I mean? When you really I'm not saying he was the greatest man on earth, but when you dig into what he was doing, it was for the betterment of his people. Get out of his way and let him work. So but that's that oppressor mind state, right? I'm reading another book simultaneously, Pedagogy of the Oppressed, that somehow
Freire.
Right, the point is right there, and the best thing is I'm looking at Sankara's book and I'm reading Pedagogy of the Oppressed at the same time. That's the strategy he used. You're never going to fight the oppressor and win, but if you can empower the oppressed, who can the oppressor oppress anymore, right? And that's just the way it goes. But the way they do Africa is just, after going there and visiting and getting to know the brothers over there and the sisters over there, it's going to take a worldwide system against oppression for them to get free. Because the rest of us ain't free. We just think we are. That's the only difference. The rest of us are still just as oppressed as they are. And we just have the appearance of freedom. But we're not really free. When I was over there with Mike, we were all sitting there talking, we all kind of came to that conclusion. This is a worldwide system of oppression. 100,000 years ago, whatever, some men sat down and said, hey, we're going to do this to people. And you go over here and do it, and you go over here and do it, and you go over here and do it, and stick to the strategy. It's going to work. We have to get together, sit down and say, you go over here, and put a strategy against it. Or I feel for Ibrahim Traore, right? I feel for him and I fear for him because they're going to try to kill him. Not even try. Yeah. At some point, they're going to succeed because they have nothing else to do, and they have the means to do it. And it's just sad, man. It's just sad.
Yeah, but you raised a good point there as to why we're doing this at the moment. Is that so a big part of my audience here is people in prison. Okay. In Ireland, so I can't change the criminal justice system. I can't change the housing situation. I can't change anything like that. But what we can do is we can mobilize the individuals. We can educate the individuals. We can inspire hope and in the hope that they can change their lives and their families' futures. I think that's kind of in line with what you're saying there with the Freire book.
Yeah, and I totally agree. Even to the extent, you just said, criminal justice system, right? So after all the reading I've been doing, as of late, the last year and the things I've been into, I kind of got this movement. I'm going to stop calling it the criminal justice system, because as a society, if every time we talk about justice, it's got to be connected to crime, then there's never any justice unless a crime is involved. And what we're fighting for is justice, real equity, across the board. The only way to fight it is to empower the people that are being oppressed, the people because we're I always people oh, you was locked up. I was a victim of the war on drugs. Straight like that. I survived the war on drugs. When Nixon started and Reagan kept going, I was born in those communities. The one thing I knew by the time I was 12 years old was I was going to prison. I knew maybe something else might happen in my life, but the one thing I was sure of, I'm going to prison, because everybody around me was going to prison. So I'm going to go, right? A lot of the gentlemen that I know over there in Ireland or anywhere in the world that are in prison come from the same kind of situation as me. The color of your skin doesn't matter. You were born in a economically depressed situation. They filled it up with alcohol, drugs, and all kinds of vice. And when you're a kid growing up, you want what everybody else got. So you're gonna be attracted to the people that have a nice car, have nice clothes, seem to be eating well. What are they doing? You know, like I say, the industry in my neighborhood was cocaine, right? You grew up in a neighborhood where you had doctors and lawyers and businessmen. I grew up in a neighborhood that had cocaine, so I grew
Yeah.
into the business that was in front of me. But what you're doing, the work you're doing is important. We need more fellas like you doing what you're doing, more women doing what you're doing, going back in, trying to empower people to know, like, look, you don't have to accept this. Just because this is the narrative that they've written, this does not have to be your narrative. You can change it, but it just say it's all in here. It's all mental. It's all perspective. You know.
So is your origin story in the context of the crack cocaine epidemic?
Indeed. You know, that's me. I grew up. I was born in 1979. You can go back, look at that. That's it. You know. But what crack did to our communities, in particular, was it took the adults off the board, right? Because they were the ones smoking crack. So by the time you're 11, 12 years old, you know, mommy might be stressed out on crack. Auntie, whoever was watching you, they getting high. So nobody's watching you. So you see this flip in our community where children became like the providers. And when that happens, who has authority over these children? They run wild. I mean, we still living 30, 40 years later with what happened back then. You still got wild kids that won't listen to their parents because for whatever, the parents weren't in a position of authority. Because the way that capitalism tells us authority is gauged is by how much money do you have, right? How much, if you got money, I'm gonna listen to you. If you don't, I'm not gonna listen to you. And that translates into the home, and it's unfortunate. But yeah, I'm definitely a product of Reaganomics.
Yeah, and also we'll go on to the CIA again because they had a big role in that crack epidemic, and they were supporting the overthrow of another leader in Nicaragua. And
Yeah,
there's talk
Sandinistas,
now,
right? Yeah.
yeah, they had and there's talk now of some communities in Los Angeles looking for reparations from the government for the damage caused in those communities. Is there a part you look back with anger and resentment, or did you have to do some processing to kind of come to terms and accept what went on and the injustices your community faced?
I mean, so you go through it like you're angry in the moment, right? You're angry as you're growing up through this because, so for me, I was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. But then my parents, you know, saw where it was going at. The mills that closed, there was no opportunity. They moved me and my brother to a place in Northern Virginia, right outside of DC. So we were in the suburbs, so we could see it, and it was going on where we were at, but it wasn't as prevalent as it was back home. So I'm living in this place where it's mixed income. You got poor people like me, and then you got ridiculously rich people like it's senators, CIA agents, FBI. It was the kid. I grew up with their kids, right? But I grew up over here on the other side of the swamp with the roaches and the rats and the bed bugs. But then I drive up the hill and they got a $2 million home. You know, so like that was the problem. Like that's what made me angry. How come we can't have this? How come we can't go there? And you know, your mother and father try to explain to you, everybody just doesn't get that card in life, right? But it's like, nah, what card they got, we don't got. So by the time you're 14, 15, you angry, right? Like, and that's what most of it is. You angry and you're fearful. Like that's what I figured. A lot of it is just based in fear. Like, how am I going to eat today? When I was 11 years old, I came home. Neither of my parents had a job. They were both sitting on the couch watching soap operas, laughing about it. I go outside and get my first package. We need money now, right? So, what it took for me was growing up, and at age 30, I kind of look back like I got to change what my value system is. I got to change what matters to me. I got to stop looking at the narrative of them saying what gives one worth and what's success, and start deciding that success is something different. And I just decided success was pouring into other people because that's all I could hope for. You know, when I was 30, that was my last time I got charged and convicted. They was trying to give me like 76 years. You know, if I get convicted of them that time, I'm not coming home. So in my mind, I was like, look, let me just do something for somebody so they don't go through this. And
Because
that was my
you have the discrepancy in sentencing for crack cocaine as well, and compared to powder cocaine. Not just so that was a real racial law where the white people use the powder, they get a lesser sentence. The black people use the crack rock cocaine, they get 10 times that sentence. And then you have a case where you have young people in prison with no light at the end of the tunnel for personal use amounts.
yeah. I mean, that's the reality of the American prison system that people don't know. Like they don't realize it. most of these people locked up, well, a good majority of them, they're nonviolent, right? And you on the street selling drugs, somebody asking you for that. You're not forcing it on them. But I got guys I grew up with that are not coming home. Ain't gonna happen, because they might have got caught with a package of drugs and a gun. Didn't use the gun, but the gun was there. And as soon as the gun is there, it becomes a violent crime, right? So you get in life. I got a homeboy right now doing 2 life sentences plus 75 years. And that's it. There's no recourse. So down here in the Virgin Islands, they have parole. I was in there yesterday in the prison. I teach some classes, facilitate. I don't teach nobody. I don't train nobody. You do that to dogs and animals and children. I don't do that. But I was in there facilitating, and I was explaining to them that, y'all got parole. Where I'm from, you're doing 87.5% of your time, period. There's no getting out early unless somehow, some way the law changes and you get relief. But they never changed the law in America retroactively. That's why you see marijuana now being legal in a lot of places, but you still got guys. I mean, you got guys doing life for marijuana. Skip crack, skip cocaine, skip heroin, marijuana. Dudes is doing life and not coming home. So it's just, but it's legal in that state now. Now the state is taxing it, making millions of dollars, billions of dollars, but you got a guy locked up for doing the same thing you're doing.
They should be getting compensation and freedom.
Without question. Yeah. I mean, you stole their business from them. And then even with the way they built that out was it's largely directed towards other people, right? So you won't see people that look like me in that industry. Even though that industry built partial on my back, right? We the ones using it, we the ones selling it. You take the industry over and we don't have an opportunity to even be a part of it because you've already got charges on us that render us unable to be a part of the industry. Like if you catch a simple possession charge and it's a felony, you can't run a dispensary. You can't own a dispensary. Your name can't be on the paperwork. But you know more about weed than anybody else do. So, I mean, it's just America's based on money. I'm going to say it right now. Y'all can tell the whole America's based on money. The whole world is based on money. But this is the root of that evil. I'm telling you. Here, they only care about the money. If you ain't making the money or they can't make money off of you, they're going to get rid of you. That's how America works.
Well, all you have to do is look at the establishment, a billionaire with a cabinet full of billionaires, and somehow they fool the working class people into thinking that they're going to represent them. It's amazing how they do it.
But that's what poverty does, Like, so I remember way back when people was like, Trump, if he run for president, it won't work. I was like, you do know if he runs, he's going to win. Because all you people care about is celebrity. You know his name, you're going to vote for him. And he's going to and he said, he's like, I would appeal to the masses that nobody talks to anymore, which is largely, white people. Because everybody thinks white people are rich. I'm from Pittsburgh, right? Working class.
Pittsburgh Steelers, you have there, don't you? Pittsburgh Steelers.
But I'm a Cowboys fan, but go Steelers because
Okay.
they represent the city. It's all good though. It's all good, right? Well, you got black, white, working class together. It's not to say there's no racism because America's built on racism, but it's different. It's not that way. So, but in a lot of other places, they think, oh, because you're white, that gives you a privilege. Man, white don't give you no privilege. This white people go through Appalachia, and you'll see like when y'all get America, other places you get New York, L.A., Miami. There's a whole swath of America y'all not seeing. And it don't look like that. You know what I'm saying? It don't look like that. The American dream is only for some. And the reason that guy's president right now is because a lot of people have been denied the American dream, but they've been sold the story that because you're white, the American dream is yours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, do you know those people in Appalachia? A lot of them have Irish heritage. A lot of them would have come from during the plantations in Ireland where the British was taking Catholic land and confiscating it and then bringing in Protestants from the UK to settle the land. And a lot of them Ulster Scots then, maybe they didn't find success in Ireland or whatever, but they ended up emigrating before the famine and everything, emigrating to America, which was a new land at the time. The English had colonies in Virginia and all along the East Coast where they were selling tobacco and tobacco plantations and stuff like that. But in the Protestant culture in the north of Ireland here, they celebrate the Battle of the Boyne and King Billy's victory over the Catholic king, so the Protestant king over the Catholic king, okay? So a lot of those Ulster Scots, so Ulster is the north part of Ireland, and the Irish Scottish heritage, they settle in Appalachia, and they bring their music and their culture and all these things. But because they're king was King Billy. That there's a theory now that this is how they got the name hillbillies, because they settle in the hills of Appalachia, and that's their background. And a lot of the, the bluegrass music with the
Yeah,
banjos, like a lot of it's very similar to some Irish traditional music as well. So you could just see the melting pot of cultures in the new world as it was,
yeah.
but to the detriment of the native people, I would imagine as well. Who were wiped off the face of the earth. But listen, we could talk about that history for days, but it's important to know your history and the context of how we got to where we are today, and then how we can move on. But so you actually, when you were speaking, you mentioned that you were near DC. I was in South Africa the year before you with a fella from Washington DC who have very similar life experiences to you. Born into the crack epidemic, he ended up getting a life sentence, but he got out after 27 years because they changed the law in Washington, D.C. to say that you can't give somebody, a juvenile, a life sentence. They have to have a release date. And he got out by the grace of God after 27 years. But he was lucky, really, when you think of it. If he was 18 when he committed it and not 17, he would have never got out. But how did you?
Think about the insanity of that. They
Yeah.
gave a child life.
Mm.
A child. When you look at the history of the prison system, and I mean, Michelle Alexander's book, tells people, but I don't think people understand what she's really saying in that. They emancipated the enslaved. And the next day, it feels like they started jails and prisons. The people that
Yeah.
used to be the slave catchers became the police officers. There's a direct connection to incarceration here and slavery. And the only time in America you can be an enslaved is when you're convicted of a crime, right? So it's just crazy, man.
But
Like
didn't they put like a clause within the Constitution that abolished slavery except for in the
except for
confinements of a prison?
right, exactly. Just being convicted of a crime. Like if you're just convicted of a crime, you can become a slave again. So that means any one of us walking around here with charges, if they so felt like it, could enforce it as such. And that's the craziness of America.
How did you break the cycle for yourself?
I just said I'm not playing this game anymore. I was always pretty intelligent, not to toot my own horn. I always had
Yeah.
good grades, study. I put myself through college. I did it the wrong way, but I did it. And I was just like, I'm not doing this anymore. Like it can only affect me if I participate in it. So I'm gonna go a different way. I really got into my faith real deep. While I was away on my last bit, I studied the Bible like I was in a seminary, and I really got to know the Word real good. And I really didn't have a plan. I was just like, look, I'm not gonna commit no more crimes. If I got to live in a cardboard box, I'd rather do that than live in a concrete box. So I'm gonna just come out here and do right. But while I was away, I had wrote some papers for some guys I was locked up with that had questions about the Bible, and I had a bunkie named Q, Eugene Melchior, and Eugene kept all of these papers. And about a year or so before I came home, he sends me a kite like, "Yo, give me a call," because I never called nobody, never sent no letters. I wanted to be alone for this lad because I wanted to come home different. And he was like, "Look, I'm gonna publish your book for you." And I was like, "What book?" He was like, "Man, I just saved all the papers. My mom read them. She thought they were good. I'm going to publish it." I was like, "Man, do whatever you do, man. It's cool." So when I came home, I had a published book. I happened to go into a reentry program, and the director of it, she caught wind, talked to me, and realized, like, not that everybody locked up is a knucklehead, but she realized that I definitely was only that way because of the conditions I was raised in. Had I been raised in a different place, I'd have been a CEO executive some way. So she put me on a path, and ultimately, I ended up getting a job with Clemency Project 2014, which was President Obama's initiative the last 2 years of his office to go back into the federal prisons and basically let nonviolent drug offenders out. So I got to work on that job, and doing that just raised my profile, and it was like everything went this way from there. But really the decision I made was I'm not going to do nothing wrong again. I'm going to go do the right thing. And if you put positivity out, positivity is going to go back to you, but you got to believe in it. And you got to change your perspective of what matters and what is success. Success to me is being able to wake up every day and the police ain't chasing me. Being able to wake up every day and ain't nobody trying to kill me. Being able to wake up every day without the worries and stresses that come with street life.
Faith. I think when we were talking about like in your turning point, was part of it was faith and change in legislation, but it sounded like, to be honest with you, it sounded like you started to operate on a kind of a more positive, higher frequency. You began to look at yourself in a different light. The world starts rewarding you then with opportunities, and opens doors for you. But I think a big part, and I only had a conversation recently with somebody about the laws of attraction and about when you get your mindset into a place of gratitude, of possibility, like the universe rewards you, doesn't it?
Totally. Right. And that
Or
which
God rewards you.
no, I'm with you. You know what I'm saying? Like, but that's totally all that it is, right? Prior to that point, I was operating off, like I said, anger, right? Anger at a system that was trying to keep me down, angry at people around me that couldn't see anything better for us, anybody, you know. So, but once I stopped operating out of anger and I started operating out of love and not expecting anything, but being grateful for what I had, I was okay. I always tell people this: what my last stint in incarceration did was it minimized my wants, and by minimizing my it minimized my needs and removed my wants. Right, the things I needed became very, very little. Because when you're sitting in a box, you don't have everything, but you start realizing, what do I actually need to survive? I need running water, I need soap, I need food, I need clean clothes. And something to stimulate my mind. That's really all you need to live. And once you get to that place, and that's all you need in life, then you can start having abundance because you can appreciate the things you're having. But when you're out here in the real free world, man, you got access to everything. You know what I'm saying? So most of your life is anger, fear, and jealousy over what you don't have, as opposed to being thankful for what you do have. But like you said, if you're thankful and you're positive for what you do have, more comes your way. Because like people always like, what did you do, Adryann? I didn't do nothing. I just changed the way I looked at the world. That's it. I stopped looking like, oh, I don't have $100. I started looking like, I'm thankful I got $20. That's it. Like that's really all it is. That's the flip. That's the switch. Just be grateful for life. Be thankful even in the hard times. Because as hard as your times is, somebody got it worse than you. I mean, everybody says that, but it's true. Somebody got it worse than you. And somebody can have $100 million and still have it worse than you. It's all about your perspective, how you approach this thing.
Yeah, there's a great Bob Marley line I love Bob Marley because so much wisdom in his songs. A lot of them are spiritual as well.
Yep.
But he says, every man thinks his burden is the heaviest.
Huh. Amen. Amen.
It's
That's
true.
true. Yeah. But reality is, but that's just life. Like you have to embrace your time while you're in this place, right? The good times, the bad times, because it's so short, right? So just embrace it. Like the simple act of feeling the wind blow on your face is something you don't appreciate till they put you in a box, right? Smelling fresh air is something you don't appreciate till they put you in a box. You don't get how much that really matters. But that's why if guys go away and you come out, or women go away and you come out not appreciating the simple things in life, you ain't ready to be free yet because you haven't become free. Freedom doesn't happen when they pop the gate. Freedom happens inside of you long before that if you're going to be free. You got to live free no matter where you're at, no matter what the conditions. Because a lot of people live in this world in $100 million prisons. A lot of people drive around in $100,000 cars that are just prisons, right? They're locked in and imprisoned by the lifestyle that they think they got to have to impress other people. They still haven't even really embraced their true self. Embrace your true self. That's where freedom is at.
Yeah, I've said it many times. When I was in addiction, going into prison, I often felt more freedom inside than I did on the outside because inside I was able to go to the gym, play football, have a social life where I could talk to people, play cards. I had my family in my life; they weren't worried about me, so we were good, And I knew where I was sleeping. I was safe. I wasn't cold. I didn't know any money. But I had no life skills. When I got out, I was tied to a methadone clinic. I was stuck to some deal. My world was so small, and I didn't go to the gym. I didn't learn or educate myself. I had terrible relations with my family. I was disconnected, lonely, poor, and just in addiction. But you're free. But freedom is no good to you when you don't have the skills or the mentality to actually be able to utilize the freedom or the choices that life gives you when you have freedom.
And then it's like a person has to ask themselves, what is freedom? Like, what is freedom? It's a great concept that we talk about, but to every man, that definition is different. So you got to find out what freedom means for you. Just like you got to find out what success means for you, what abundance means for you. Like, and don't base it on what anybody's telling you. It can't be based on outside circumstances. It's got to be all intrinsic. And that's hard for a lot of people because we live in a world that tells us to be sheep. We live in a world that says you got to be this way, that way, and the third. When in reality, man, if you just be as unique as you are, that is your lane. That is where your abundance comes from. That's where your prosperity comes from your uniqueness. Out of that is born whatever you're supposed to be doing out here in these streets. Like you telling your story, but here I am. I'm in the Virgin Islands. You over there in Ireland, and we talking. You found your way, right? But it didn't come through some, like the Paul moment on the road to Damascus or nothing like that. Nah, it was just simple stuff like, you know what? I'm gonna stop doing this and start doing this. Do things that bring life, not that bring death. Think thoughts that give life, that don't bring death. It's that simple. If you believe in life, if you invest in life, you'll have life. If you invest in death, you'll have death.
And I think small changes and small positive changes accumulate and can snowball into big events, you know. So if you like, I'll read that book, or I'll enroll in that course, or I'll try this. Before you know it, you could be doing a university degree, and then you're thinking, how did that happen? It happened because you tried something and it opened the door for you. You met somebody, then you had a talent you didn't realize, or an interest you never knew you had. And then, like, it's just amazing how life evolves, you know. But it's just about taking calculated risks, you know, safe risks as well, stepping out of your comfort zone, meeting new people, and getting out of the cell, the yard, the estate, the project, or wherever you're from, because people's worlds can be so small. But if people now are watching this and they have many of them will have criminal records, and they might think, what's the point? What's the point? And I know you've set up a few organizations, and was that out of not being able to find a job, or was it like, how difficult is it for somebody with a criminal record in the United States? And tell us about your organizations you set up.
All right. So in all reality, on my last bit when I went in there, about 2 weeks in, my father had passed away about 2 weeks before I went away. And then about 2 weeks in, all I kept hearing my father say was your choices. Because I'm in this place again, right? That year alone, I had been incarcerated 3 times, right? That was the third time. And it was like, look, man, I got to stop doing this. But all I kept hearing my father say was choices, choices. And I know I'm looking at all this time. So I'm like, man, let me come up with something where I can approach the young fellas coming in here. Because I was only 30, but, in there, that's like unk status. Guys are getting locked up 18, 19. So let me come up with this plan for how I can, help young people in here, but help people outside. Maybe I can write up something, a curriculum or something that I can give to a friend that they can use out there. So I came up with this thing called Choices. And Choices stands for Communities Helping Our Intelligent Children Envision Success. And it's based off 5 points: mentoring, spiritual guidance, advising, just some good stuff for kids, physical health and wellness, and community outreach. If you do these 5 things in life, you'll find success, because you'll find yourself. And I kept writing that up and kept writing that up. And the whole time, the whole 4 years I was away that time, I just kept working on it. But I studied everything in the world about nonprofit organizations. Like, I poured myself into it. I gave myself an MBA in the nonprofit world. And when I first came home, I was cutting hair making like $75 a week. So I couldn't start nothing with that. But I just kept pouring into that. Like, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm supposed to do. And I kept taking jobs and jobs. And then I finally got married, had a son, and that always pushed things back a little bit more. But that was 2009 when I devised this thing. Finally, in 2020, I told my wife, like, look, we're going to start this nonprofit. She was like, how are we going to start a nonprofit? We don't have no money. You tripping right now. I'm like, I don't know. It's in my heart. We about to do it. And so we launched it. We launched the Line Community. And the Line Community has the choices side. And then it also has the reset side, which is rehabilitate, educate, strategize, execute, and triumph. And that's our community reentry and alternatives to incarceration. So what a Line Community is really all about, my secret sinister plan is, if I can keep children from going that way, then that's one less person going into the system. And if I can help the people coming out from recidivating and going back in there, then that's one less person in the system. So if I can align the community to provide the resources, the love and the support that people need to make a life for themselves before they get in trouble and after they get in trouble, maybe, just maybe, I can shut down this crazy, stupid prison complex that we got going on here in America. And I'm just one person. We're small. We're not well funded, but we just do the best we can with it. And you can do anything you want to do. The only time you can't do something is when you believe people telling you you can't. Anything is possible. Just keep pushing. Just keep pushing. It will come. At this point with a line, we're still in the Virgin Islands operating, but we're preparing to launch in Arizona and Pennsylvania as well right now, right? And that's from a guy who was sitting in his cell with a pen and a couple of pieces of paper, writing down over and over again, look, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I can do this. I can do this. And I just came home and did it. The only reason you can't do something because you don't just go do it. Ain't nothing holding you back from being you, from being the best you can be. And that has to be your definition of success, not what whoever's doing, right? Not what Bill Gates did, not what Steve Jobs did. What's the best version of you? That's success for you. But first, you got to spend enough time self-reflection, really getting to know yourself. You got to want yourself. And once you begin to love and appreciate yourself, you won't let nobody tell you what you're not good enough for. Like that just won't have no place to live and grow in your heart. You'll be like, thank you for your opinion, and you'll keep it moving. And whatever it is in front of you, be patient, right? Because you only get what you put into something. I put 12 years into coming up with a line. So I'll probably get a lifetime out of it at this point, Lord willing, or whatever else comes next after a line. I don't know. But I know I'm going to keep going down this path, right? Of whatever's on my heart, I'm going to do it. And you're not going to tell me I can't do it. You're not going to tell me what qualifies me to do the work I'm doing is what I've been through. And I think a lot of us that come home, we try to go walk somebody else's path. Nah, bruh, what qualifies you is what you've been through. Use that to your advantage. That lived experience, ain't no book gonna tell you it. Ain't no amount of money gonna buy it for you. Even out here when I work with other organizations and they'll try to shortchange us. I just tell them simply, look, the information I'm sharing with you and what I know, I almost gave my life to get that. I literally almost died to know what I know. There's no way you're gonna shortchange me on that. You don't even have enough money to afford it. So whatever number I give you, you need to match that number. Yeah, just walk in your strength. Don't look at your time away or your addiction, whatever it is. Don't look at it as a weakness. Look at it as a strength. The average person can't do time. Let's start with that. If you ever been in a box, you know them guys is crying every day, walking around, gray in the face, head down. They can't do it. They're not built for it. They lose their mind in there. They come home and they're never right again. If you can go through that, get home and still be in your right mind, ain't nothing that can stop you, man. Nothing. Nothing. You
Yeah,
just got to believe.
absolutely. And you've been involved in advocacy work and activism as well. Was I reading about you were involved in like a ban the box type of campaign?
Oh yeah, man. So Ban the Box was just huge when I came home. So I was a part of it, working with a whole bunch of people, people in California, wherever. So it was like a national thing where everybody was
So
like coming in like,
will you explain what ban the box is for people that might not know?
oh, all right. So that's making sure that on job applications, you don't have to put your criminal history. It's not saying you can't ask for a person's criminal history, but after you make the offer of employment. Right? Make me an offer of employment, then ask me about my background. But first, just judge me off the merits of who I am. So the Ban the Box initiative was all about that because over here, if you fill out a form for a job and you check felony or convicted of a crime, they don't even look at anything else. That's the end of it. They don't want you and your criminal ways in their organization. But if you take away the box and you get to know some people, you'll have an actual opportunity. What we find is people that have been impacted by the justice system, their first job opportunity, they usually retire from it because they feel a sense of gratitude for having been given that opportunity. So yeah, ban the box, and even down here in the Virgin Islands, I'm trying to pass some legislation right now for second chances because it's needed. There's nothing here except for what my little organization does, and we don't have any of the infrastructure here to support the work we do. All we can really offer guys is, us being with them in a different way of thinking. But the community itself is offering them nothing. There's still no housing. Jobs are few and far in between. They have this stigma about people that have been incarcerated. Not real. In America, 1 in 3 American adults have been charged with a crime. When you look at that number, everybody just about, your neighbor, somebody been locked up or been involved with the justice system. How are you going to not give people chances? You have to give people chances. Eventually, what we do in America, we lock people up here. This is what we do. There's no other country in the world that lock people up the way we do. And not for the sentences that we do. This is what we do. We lock people up and we commit violent acts. That's America in a nutshell. I don't know all the good stuff people be talking about. I don't see it. I don't know. But that's because I come from the bottom. Maybe if I ever get to the other side, I'll see all this beautiful American dream stuff. I ain't never seen that. So, you just have to, when you see something wrong, say something about it. If it's the simplest thing, and not just in your realm, like if you got, and I'm not gay, right? But hey, if a guy want to live his life that way, let him live his life that way. Let people live their lives. And you, me, any of us that have been oppressed, we should be fighting for those that are oppressed. And if you just do that, you'll be fine in life, man. But yeah, Ban the Box was dope. It still hasn't done what it's supposed to do. But what we've seen a lot more is people like you and me creating our own pathways. You know, right? Like,
Yeah.
why do you have to wait for somebody to create a pathway for you? Nobody needs to create a door for you. Go create your own door. Be an entrepreneur. Don't be afraid to bet on yourself. Because when you bet on yourself, you're gonna go harder than you would for somebody else. You'll be amazed at how much success you'll see betting on yourself.
Yeah, and in Ireland, there's a lot of there's good initiatives and grants and funding opportunities for social entrepreneurs. So people like yourself now that are starting up something, they see an issue and they come up with a solution. And when you have that lived experience and you have an education and training, it's a powerful combination. And all those past negative life experience all of a sudden become one of your biggest assets and one of your biggest selling points. And it's taking ownership over that and controlling the narrative around it. And I'd say it must be very difficult for people, people that are getting on with their lives and they have that background, but maybe they're in a relationship or they've moved on with their life, they're in a job and nobody knows the background. The fear then of maybe I'm going to get exposed sometime. That's no way to live your life either.
That's not living. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the point. Like that's not living. Like not to me, that's not my definition of life. My definition of life is being my authentic and true self. You know, your pain shows you your purpose most times in this life. And it's okay. But if you got to live with a mask on, you're not really living because that's not you. Whatever you're doing, it's a facade. That's not you. Don't be afraid to be who you are. But what you're saying about Ireland, man, I'm thinking, man, I might have to hop a plane. I need some help like that because we don't get none of that. You got to get it all
Well,
out the mud.
well,
All of it out the mud.
it's a lot easier for you to come to Ireland than for me to go to America. I can tell you that now. I was saying to somebody recently, I was invited over. I got a great invitation. I was invited over to speak at the California Rehabilitation Center, which is actually a prison, but it's a real innocent, benign name for a prison, which is this, they have a habit of doing these things as well. It doesn't tell you anything about the institution, but there was learners in that prison, and I was invited over to speak to them and then to speak at Pitzer College in Claremont in California. And I was declined a visa for drugs convictions. And then you can apply for a waiver, which is more stricter, but just with the way things are over there with people trying to come into the country with convictions and just the way they're going through people's social medias to see if there's any Israeli descent and all these things. I just think it's a bad time for somebody like me going over. Maybe a change of administration where there's a bit more freedom and a bit more, I don't know. I just think it's not a good time for an immigrant going into America with a criminal record at the moment. There is zero tolerance and there is no real empathy or compassion for anybody that has been through the courts.
Man, I got so I grew up in my neighborhood, obviously, outside of DC. Got a mixed community, right? I grew up with El Salvadorians, people from everywhere. We like the United Nations being my friends. And
Mm.
I got a homeboy right now who's been deported back to El Salvador. Somebody tried to rob his roommate. They were renting a house. And somebody tried to firebomb the house. Over the roommate, has nothing to do with my guy. They run in the house. For whatever reason, they start going through my guy's stuff. They find some weed and they find a gun. He's deported. Can't come back. Children over here, wife over here, it's a wrap. Like, dude, it had nothing to do with him. Second, he's the victim in this crime. The crime that's been committed, he's the victim. But away he goes. I got another friend named Mo. Mo was in a car with somebody that had a gun. Mo is back in the Ivory Coast now. Mo ain't come. He
Yeah.
can't come back. He left a daughter over here. In fact, she just graduated high school. He left a daughter over here, brother, sister, can't come back. America's immigration policies, they weren't good to begin with, and this guy's making them worse.
There's a lady from Cork, where I'm from in Ireland. She's living in California 25 years, okay? And she came home for her father. Her father had passed away, and she came home for the funeral, and she went back over, and she was detained in the airport in California, whatever one it was, and they've uncovered a conviction she has from 30 years ago. And now they're looking at revoking visa. Her whole life now is in California. 25 years she's there living legally, and now they're after uncovering this conviction from 30 years ago, and now they're looking to deport her back. It's madness, really, isn't it? And it's fucking evil as well. Like, and you see
right, it's evil.
People being deported back to countries they didn't even come from. That's what's happening as well.
I got a homeboy named Ty, and we call him Ty because he was born in Thailand. but he's actually Vietnamese. Like his parents were escaping Vietnam on a boat. It just so happened when he was born, they were in Thailand. But as you know, this infant never left said boat in Thailand. He ended up in North Carolina. He's never been to Vietnam. He's never been to Thailand in his life. For about 8 years, he had to fight to not be deported. But they were really trying to, like, where are you going to send me, dude? I'm not from there. The only place I've ever put my feet on soil is here, America. When I was coming back from South Africa, I was coming through Miami, and you have to take your bags back over to the TSA side, the American side, for them to check the luggage again. And I'm coming in, and all these other people are rolling bags. And for some reason, the Custom and Borders Patrol dude picks me out of everybody. Come here for a second. And I'm out there in the middle of this big hallway, all these people. He want to go through my whole bag. It's like, dude, I was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm a natural born citizen. But that's just how they going, man. That's just how they going.
I must go now, but one last thing on that. When we were coming back from South Africa, we come through Frankfurt Airport in Germany, and one of the ladies that was with me, another GFF, she's a Muslim from Paris, and she was wearing, you know, the way they covered their hair. Yeah. We got tore apart by the military, by the airport police in Frankfurt Airport. Our bags were tumbled upside down, and it was just because she's a Muslim. And that's as I was with her, and as a white European, I don't know what it's like to be a Muslim going through an airport. So, but because I was with her, I got the experience. This is what they're facing when they're traveling. They're being racially profiled everywhere they go. But listen, I must go. I have another one now with another guy, Jazz sings, so I'm really looking forward to that.
I told Jazz, I said, hey, say chakalaka. He gonna be with it, man. Just say chakalaka.
You're the gentleman. Thank you very much.